What's up, people? Welcome, welcome. Come on in, make yourselves comfortable. Good to see y'all. I'm letting people in the room, and we're gonna kind of jump right in. If you're here for the AI music monetization discussion. Hope y'all are doing good. Happy Wednesday. Uh, Good to see some of you are on screen, some of you are off screen. Doesn't matter. But I want you to be comfortable and just take in the info. We're going to be here for about 60 minutes, and we're going to cover a good amount of information. I'm kind of going to talk and monitor the waiting room as well, just to make sure that I let people in as they're here, and let that get started in about 30 seconds. All right, this is a nice turnout. We've had about 100 people sign up. I think it just crossed 100, like right before we jumped on here. And so this is being recorded. The replay probably will go out this week, no later than top of next week. Just depends on how long it is and how long it takes to upload and get everything set up. But you'll be sent by email, whether you're here or not. You'll be sent an email of the replay. We're going to, just to give you an overview of the next hour, we're about to introduce ourselves, and then I will do a brief introduction just of kind of like why we're here and with AI music and, kind of what prompted this discussion. And then each of us, the three presenters, we're going to talk for about 10 minutes from our unique side of the industry. It's a cool webinar in that we cover different sides of the music industry. And then we'll open it up for questions. And I'll be watching the chat. We'll be able to use Zoom's hand raising function at that point in time too. So you stay muted until we get to that point in time, and then we can unmute if you have a question, or you can ask your question in the chat. We're going to leave plenty of time for that. So the goal is to get all of you questions about AI music and monetization specifically, answering at least within our areas. There are no lawyers on this panel, so we're not going to really dive into legal areas. We'll just kind of talk about our own experiences and what we know, what we're familiar with. So with that, let me pin up the speakers, and then we're going to start our introductions. That's one. We got Akira and Onyx. All right, so I'm gonna kick it off. My name is Eric Campbell. If you're here, you probably have seen some of my TikToks about this content, which is why you came out. So I'm glad that you're here. If you're not familiar with me, I am a musician, a producer, composer. I've been creating music full time for the last more than 10 years, primarily for TV and film and advertisement. So that's the area that we refer to as sync licensing. We call it sync licensing because when you make music for TV, you have to synchronize the music to picture. So synchronization, sync for short, sync licensing is the term that covers any time when music has to be attached to a picture, video games, advertisements, what have you. I've even before music, I was in a technology background. I used to work for a software development company, so I've always been paid a lot of attention to just where tech is. I've never been one to run away from whatever's coming. My mindset has always been, as a musician, as a creator, as an entrepreneur, I'm going to adapt to whatever happens. This is not a doom and gloom webinar, but also we want to be realistic about what options are, what you can do, what you can't do. And so we'll get into that, but that's me. I'm Eric Campbell, and I'm happy to be here. Let me turn it over to Onyx.
Okay, hi guys. Thanks for joining us. So yeah, I'm Onyx. I've been in the industry for 20 years, literally. Oh my God, it's crazy to say that. I started as an artist, a singer-songwriter, so familiar with, if you're in a creative space and you're singing, songwriting, or getting into that, I'm familiar with that as a performer. Transitioned to the music executive side. I took a vested interest in learning technology and business and music and business and just business in general. So I went and got like my business management degree, did all of that. Been in the music industry. Currently, my roles are VP of Operation at 1501 Certified Entertainment. Um, we are known for Megan Thee Stallion, Erica Banks, Blessed. I was her manager, came in, me and my partner, Tinetty, we were her music managers. And then she has a manager, D-Boy. It's a history there. But everybody's familiar with like the Blessed Challenge that went big on TikTok. So that was like a really big thing. That's my current role right now, VP of Operations. I kind of work with all the different departments at the label, hands on with the CEO on the executive side of things. It's a lot. Every area I've done it from publicist to a little bit of Eric space and just a lot. So it's a lot, a lot, a lot. I do a lot. I also have my own company, High End Management, where I do contracts and I work with different corporate companies as well as music artist project related. I don't take on a lot of projects because I really like to dive into the artists and the different labels that I'm working with, and I just keep it very custom. So I don't take on a lot of things that I can't manage. I don't like to do that because I already have a lot I have to do. But yes, so I'm really looking forward to like your questions and like what everyone's doing in the AI space because I'm like Eric, I'm not running from it. It's here. I can't beat it. So I got to just work with it. But that's pretty much it.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you, Onyx. And next, I'll let Akira introduce himself.
All right. Well, how's everybody doing? It's great to see y'all's beautiful faces, or some of you, I guess. My name is Akira Hori. I work for Hori Global Publish or Entertainment. Um, yeah, my role is everything. We're a small company. My family's been in Nashville publishing for about 30 years now. They started a Hori Pro back in the day, around '89. They purchased the Kiss catalog and REO and started Marilyn Manson and Jerry Reed and they had all these great catalogs. But in 2020, they sold and they were acquired by Concord. And we started this new company with my dad and Butch Baker, who's my boss currently. And so we're trying to build this company up. And so we have three writers with us right now. And I guess a big part of my role is going out and trying to find new talent. So constantly scouting, constantly looking for artists and writers. We started a label back in October last year. So we're working on kind of our first artist right now, who's an indie folk artist called Katie Mental. And so we've been working on that, and that's been a fun change, from just publishing to working on the label side too. But we're also trying to build up a sync catalog and find some producers who do sync and everything else that is going on in the ever changing music industry. We have to find our place. So I'm very young, but I feel like I have a lot of experience just from watching people do it, and being around it my whole life. So I've kind of started doing a lot of things. I started managing an artist at the start of this year. Started actively writing about a year ago. So I think I have about 3 or 4 cuts so far, but we'll see. We'll see how the year goes. But yeah, I'm also the house Suno producer at our company. So I do know a lot about that, and I'm pretty darn good at it. So I'm excited to talk about it and excited to get to know more about all of you.
Awesome, awesome. Really, really cool. And congrats on the cuts, Akira. It's really, really cool to hear. So let me but let me talk about how this started. I've always been like, if you follow my content, I've been paying attention to AI. You know, I always stay on top of whatever technology is going on. So I've been watching and I experiment. I sign up with Suno. I play around with it. I like to know what it is, even though within my field, and I'll talk about this, the options for sync licensing are extremely limited because sync has always been very risk averse. They don't like anything where they feel like they might get sued at some point later. And so even before Suno, even with producers using Splice, Sync was always like, oh no, we can't we can't represent songs if somebody used Splice loops, even though 99.9% of producers today, use Splice loops in their productions. And so there's always been this thing in Sync and like technology, like a fear of embracing it. But I've always at least want to know what's going on. And so I always kind of try to pay attention and experiment. And so I've had conversations with both Akira and Onyx probably within a couple of weeks of each other. I was speaking on a panel with Akira in California in the top of the year, and at that time we were reviewing people's music. We were listening and giving feedback to up and coming artists, and a good percentage of the art music that was presented to us were people who said, hey, I created this, in Suno, or I wrote this song, but I did the demo in Suno. And so I was seeing a lot of that for the first time on a panel perspective. And then Akira will probably share more about this, but he had shared how he does demos, for the songwriters that they represent at their company, and that they will use Suno to take a demo of a piano vocal and then turn that into a full demo. And that was very eye-opening for me because the sync perspective is so close. It was real eye-opening to hear. That made me start asking. I left Durango, that conference, I started talking to all my Nashville friends, like, is this a thing? Is everybody, using Suno? And they were like, yeah, it's pretty big, within the songwriting side. So that was really eye-opening, especially for Nashville, which is like conservative, traditional. We have to do things a certain way. To know that it was like so embraced there was pretty shocking. And then it's probably 2 weeks later, I was in Las Vegas and met up with Onyx, and we started talking. I don't even remember the context of the conversation, but we got on to talking about AI. And Onyx had been talking to some artists that she was consulting or working with. And, getting into that conversation, we both acknowledged that this is not something that we're running from or afraid of. We're paying attention to where things are. And it also became clear that, you take an experienced executive like her and somebody on the publishing side with the experience and relationships that Akira has, we all have a perspective on AI music. None of us are afraid of it or just, trying to put our head in the sand around it. And it made me realize that a lot of the creators who are making this, they don't really have anyone to talk to or ask questions to, because from what I've noticed, most of the content online seems to be very negative. It's like, if you do this, you're not a musician, or it's everything but offering help or information. And so I don't want to really get into the debate side of it, because that's kind of pretty much what you see online. I want to be like, my whole career has been about providing information, at least, for my content. And who is objectively providing information to the people, what you can do, what you can't do. And so we thought of this idea to at least have, a discussion to just share that. If you're making this music, what is allowed, what's not allowed, what can be monetized, what can't be monetized. And so we thought, let's kick this off with just a discussion and see what it is. Let's see what interest it is. Let's see what questions you have, and then we can decide if there's a better way to help or a better vehicle to go forward from here. So that's what has brought us here today. And so I'm going to kick off the conversation. We're each going to take about 10 minutes or so to talk about our area and kind of answer this question. We're going to assume that one of us is talking to one of you, say a creative who has been experimenting or all in on Suno, and let's say you have 50 songs that you've created, and now you come across, I'm gonna start with Onyx, you come across an executive like Onyx, you find out that she's in the music industry, she works with this label, and so you're like, hey, I've been working with Suno, I've got like 50 songs that I made. Can I make money off this? What can I do with it? That's the question that we're going to kind of dive into. So I'll turn that over to you, Onyx, to give how you would address somebody like that.
Yeah, 50 songs is crazy, but great. That means you're really out putting your work out there. I would definitely start by posing different questions for you, just kind of like the end goal. I always like to know the end goal so that we can kind of build a roadmap into where we're going next and what we're going to do. I'm really big on pushing out multiple singles. When it comes to the distribution side, there's different ways that you can look into monetizing. It's not just all going to be DSP related. You can definitely distribute your music in different ways and come up on different opportunities, which kind of segues into the branding portion of that as well. If a lot of you are on TikTok, I'm not sure how many of you are on TikTok and what that looks like, but there was a trend recently with the people taking like the text messages conversation and turning it into music, and that's become a big thing, and there were viral moments off of that. So there's a lot of different things that you can do to put your music out there, and you could even do it in a form such as that. So you can get on trends. You can the biggest piece that you want to make sure that you're doing is creating the brand behind the song, because that's what's going to set you apart. So you want to make sure that you're branding and putting out not just a lot of content, but creating more of an experience for your consumer. Once you learn who that consumer is and who's actually enjoying the music, you want to make sure that you are doing things to create more of an experience for them, so it doesn't feel as robotic, AI generated. And again, it kind of goes back to your goals. So I'm not sure like where everyone is in their stage, if you're the beginner, if you're releasing music, if you're doing elements of AI. So that's kind of helpful to know. So I can kind of speak to it more than that. But the biggest thing I would be is to hone in on some singles, kind of put some music out there, put some content out there, get the engagement going, see what people like, and then we can kind of start from there. When it comes to distribution, we have multiple platforms that you can put your music through. You can use TuneCore, you can use UnitedMasters, you can use all of these different services that are available, DistroKid. However, it may be labeled AI generated music. They're still trying to figure that out. And like Eric said, we won't get into the legal pieces of all of that. But you do want to make sure that you use an appropriate software to be able to do that. And that would be Suno is an approved software. Certain softwares aren't approved, your music will be taken down. But yeah, so it just kind of depends on your journey specifically. And I know that everyone probably has a unique journey and different things and where they're at in their stages. So when I can kind of learn a little bit more of that, then we could tailor it to what it is that you can be working towards. So I don't know if that was too vague, but it just really depends on the artist and where you're at.
No, that is great. I saw someone in the chat, Martin Davis, said he's misbehaving on Spotify because he talks about having a catalog of 94 songs. And some of the songs are different mixes of the same song, but he might come on to they might come on and answer this question later. But it says they've got over 30,000 monthly listeners, over 300,000 streams, and it sounds like starting with Suno in November of 2025. So this is a relatively short amount of time.
That's correct.
And did you started from scratch and from November to now have got the 30,000 monthly listeners?
Yeah, but I don't want to lead you in the wrong direction. I was doing music since the late 80s, house music, dance music. Then I did like 30 years in security, got totally out of it, raised a family. My youngest, 14 years old, turned me on to Suno. It was a wrap. Once I started putting that stuff that I had from the 80s, 90s, it was a wrap, guys. I'm telling you, it just opened up my whole world. I'm not going to take up a lot of meeting, but it was like I could do everything I used to have to bring in background, musicians, this, that, and the other. I could do it all on my own from the house. It was a rap. And then I was doing, you go to my Spotify, Misbehaving. I do gospel, dance, reggae, because I had it all here. But now with Suno, bruh, it takes what I have and like elevates it up 110%. So you can't tell me nothing now. I'm all in on Suno, all in.
I appreciate you sharing that, Mark. And I wanted you to just have that, Onyx, in case you wanted to speak to
I think that's awesome. And that's why I'm not like pro this or pro that. I'm with it because again, I've been, I started as a creator songwriter as well. And you had that talk cost money going in there, the music production, the mixing and mastering, all of that is very expensive and it becomes pricey. And now we're in a state, of course, when I was in music, you couldn't just go upload your music. You had to have a record label. It's just a completely different space that we're in. So I love it. I think it's great. And then I would say to some of your best performing songs and, you put some content behind that and keep it moving. I mean, it really is sky is the limit, but you can get a lot of opportunities, just like the influencers do. They get these partnerships, these brand partnerships. I know Sync is a different space, but you can get a lot of partnerships and branding deals just based off of your music and the visibility of that and the reach. And of course you can chart. So TikTok was the leading, that's how we charted with our music was TikTok. So TikTok was bigger than Google and that became kind of what was controlling the charts for a very long time, and radio. So there's a lot of different pieces with that.
Awesome.
Now, Eric was right about the sync. Like some sync people that reached out to me for some, but then when they found out it was some AI in it, they ghosted. They really did, which was cool because I didn't get into the business for that. I'm retired, but I saw what you're talking about, Eric. But my thing is, as long as I can make money with the streaming and maybe a possible something with like a Onyx or like I got like artists that are kind of tapping into me saying, hey, I might want to do this or that. So I'm gonna just ride it out, and see what happens.
Cool. I'm glad you said that, Mark. I'll come back and I'll talk about the sync side. So put a thumb on that. But Onyx, before you wrap, let me just ask, even for that example or just in general, somebody does have the songs. What? Because we talked about the importance of branding. How does somebody start to make a brand? And I do see a hand up. I'm gonna save the hands of questions till we come back to the formal Q&A. So just hold on to those questions. But talk a little bit more about the branding. And one thing I do want to ask Onyx, especially when it comes to branding, I have noticed within Suno specifically, Akira might have a thought on this too, but I've noticed Suno sometimes has a tendency to use a similar voice within a lot of the songs. So you make a gospel song, I make a gospel song. We both sound like the same artist. So how do you go about getting a brand and distinction, so that you stand out? Like how important is it doing that, and then how do you go about doing that?
Eric, can I say something really quick?
Actually, Rachel, I don't want to open this up to this, so just hold that,
Okay.
Or put it in the chat, and then we'll come back to it.
Okay.
Thank you.
I love this. Rachel, I'm sorry if I beat you to it, what you're going to share, but I can't wait to hear what you have to say as well. With this in particular, so what we want to get back to is one of the things that I've always stood true and firm with is whatever people aren't doing, I need to be doing that, and then what everybody else is doing as well, right? So you take it back to, there's people that are, when everything kind of went just digital, or like we were still in the streets, if you will, quote unquote, we were still doing street promotion. We were still going person to person. We were still doing that interaction. So you want to create different things outside of just the content that can create, you want to build your brand by doing things, everything, basically, everything that you can do. And you're saving a lot of time because you're using Suno and AI and everything else. So use that other time that you would have been to create a user experience, a fan experience. If you're looking for fans, you need to work on what that looks like. You can still do fan gifts. You remember when you used to order the VIP shirts and get fan merch and things like that, and do something, do merch, you know what I mean? do different content. Don't just use one platform. I know we keep talking about TikTok. Snapchat has millions and millions of users. You could be on Snapchat. You need to be utilizing all the social media platforms that you can use. And you need to create social media platforms for the, music or the AI. That's another thing too, because some people are doing the AI and they're using their self, which is great. So they're able to make content over and over, go out and meet artists. They can actually perform a little bit and have the music with them. And some people are just putting it out there and that's the alias and they're making it work for them. And that's a different experience that you have to create as well for your fans. So another thing that you can do is when you do begin to, make sure you're interacting with the fans. You could do things just like as you would if you were an artist. We have our artists. When you release music, you can do some type of countdown or, I'm releasing my single. Like you really need to promote it as if you are the artist. You need to become the brand, put yourself out there. You can do premieres. I mean, there's so many different things that you can do, so many different ways that you can brand yourself, but mainly utilize all your social media platforms. Make sure you all have it. We all talked about back in the day, all the social media handles matching. People can find you if they want to and they Google it. And especially if the song takes off, they're going to find you anyway. I mean, people will find you regardless. So that's a good problem to have when people are looking for you. And if people are trying to figure out if it is AI, like Martin had, that's good. That means that they're really interested. The engagement is there. You're doing something right. So there's different ways that you can brand, but it's a lot that goes into it. Like that's a whole segment by itself, just branding in general. But again, my rule of thumb is I'm doing everything they're not doing. If they're online, I'm going outside. If they're just outside, I'm gonna make sure I'm online as well. So we do it all.
I like that. That's a really, really good rule. Whatever they're doing, try to pay attention to it and then try to figure out the opposite of how to stand out. All right, Onyx, thank you. We'll come back, and I promise we will get to all these questions. We're gonna jump over to kind of the more publishing side, then I'll talk on the sync side, and then we set aside an hour, but we're not going to be running off, so we will have plenty of time to talk and chat and open up the floor. So just hang in there and hang with us. All right, Akira, same question. If you're consulting that same artist, they've got all these songs. How are you advising them?
Yeah, well, I guess in what I do in publishing, usually the creatives that I interact with for the most part are songwriters, right? And so people who move to Nashville to be songwriters, their goal is to have their songs cut by artists, to get a publishing deal, to get paid a draw, and be able to make a living through their music. So I felt like it would probably be most helpful to just kind of talk about how to approach a publisher. If you are using AI music in whatever capacity, I'll kind of break those down. And then also just kind of how registration works for all of those different scenarios on what level you're using AI in your music. So, I mean, first of all, if you're a songwriter and you write your lyrics, you write your melodies, and all you're doing with Suno is you're creating demos and you get a meeting with a publisher, most publishers in Nashville will not care that it's a Suno demo. They care about the song, right? So, I mean, we're used to listening to work tapes. So honestly, we don't even need to hear a demo. We can just hear a work tape and know if we love a song or we don't, So
I think just to clarify that, the work tape is like the piano vocal or guitar.
Piano vocal, guitar vocal, just whatever you record on your phone right after you write the song so you don't forget it, That's a work tape. I love those personally, but there are kind of challenges with work tapes because not every A&R person or label person or producer or manager can hear a good song without production. It does take a level of listening to be able to in your head visualize what a song would be like post-production. So that I think is the main reason why Suno has become so big in Nashville, is because we used to have to pay $800 to $1,000 just to get a song demoed. Then that means we have to decide which songs get demoed, and maybe we miss a song or someone loves a song, but they didn't hear it because it wasn't demoed, you know. So it does expand opportunities, I think, in general for songwriters to get their songs heard, but also it just makes the turnaround a lot quicker. If someone emails us or texts us and say, hey, we're cutting on Friday, we can have a demo done in 10 minutes, you know. So that's what makes Suno an incredible tool for songwriters. And I mean, we all know songwriters don't make a lot of money unless you have hit songs, you know. So it's really an incredible tool for them to be able to create a product that is close to what it would sound like if it was recorded when pitching those songs to whoever you're pitching to. So I think, yeah, if you're writing your own lyrics or your own melodies, there's going to be zero issues for the most part when talking to a publisher. Where it gets a little difficult is if you're, let's say, a lyricist and you only write lyrics and you're not writing with a melody person. You're just writing all these lyrics on your own, and then you're plugging it into Suno and letting that create the melody and do whatever it does. That's where you don't want to go into a publisher's office and just play those as if you wrote the melody there, right? You want to be completely upfront that that's your strength. And there are a lot of writers in Nashville that are lyricists who don't do a lot with melody, and that's okay. But our job, if you are an incredible lyricist, our job is to find you co-writers who are great melody writers. And that's kind of where this whole co-writing culture comes from, is, you know, you try to match different strengths into one room to create the best song, right? So I would say, and vice versa, if you're a melody writer and you don't write lyrics, I would be completely upfront with whoever you are speaking to that you did not write the melody or you did not write the lyrics, you know. And that way we know, first, I mean, if we love the lyrics or we love the melody, we're going to love it regardless. It's just going to be about, all right, how do we put you in rooms where we can use your strengths and actually create a full product, you know. So I think that's the first thing, is I would be completely upfront with what level you're using AI in your music when speaking to a publisher, because one way or another we're going to find out, right? If you're a lyricist and you're acting like Suno, you know, you're acting like the melody that Suno wrote is your own, one of these days you're going to get into a co-write and they're going to say, this guy can't write a single note, like this, you know, and then you're screwed, right? You just misrepresented yourself. So you definitely don't want to do that. And I think the most complex kind of part of publishing is just the registering. Most people don't know how to do admin.
Hey, Akira,
Yep.
before you go to the admin piece, let me just ask one more thing about what you just said. So if somebody wrote the lyrics, person has these 50 songs, they did all the lyrics, but Suno did the melody, Suno did the track, did all that. If they're coming to you, what you're saying is, from your side, they will not. There's really no path to monetizing those 50 songs from your perspective, because they didn't write. They don't own the composition for those songs. But if you love their writing, you might still work with them but you'll just put them with melody people to create new works or new songs. Is that?
I mean, let's say you have 50 lyrics, which
Mm-hmm.
I kind of made this joke earlier, but if you just have lyrics with no melody, it's a poem, right? It's not a song yet. But I do think if you have lyrics after lyrics and titles and hooks that are just clearly, you know, a level above, and you can tell that there's something special in that. I mean, my first thought would be to just send it over to someone who I know can write lyrics. You know, I may try playing around with it. Who knows, right? Like, I just think that whoever I think can really bring those lyrics to life is who I would send those to and see if they can play around with it. And that's not really a
So
rare
they
thing.
wouldn't be disqualified, because I was wondering if they already had something in Suno and Suno's already applied a melody to it, can you act like you haven't heard that melody and take it off and then just start from scratch with a new melody for that
Absolutely.
lyric.
I wouldn't even send the Suno to whoever is writing, or really the easiest way would be, all right, these lyrics are great. Let's put you in a write. Let's put you in with a writer who can write melodies and see if you can actually do this, and if you are a great lyricist, you're going to have no issues, right? This person's going to come up with really cool melodies and you're going to write lyrics that go perfectly with it. And that happens all the time. There are people who have made a living off of being lyricists who don't write a single note in songs. So that, and vice versa. So I think that's not something that would disqualify a songwriter. It's just about being upfront about it. And, really, you probably don't even need to create a Suno version if you are a lyricist. If you are just a lyricist, and really, if you're a melody writer as well, you don't really need Suno at that point yet, because there's no song yet, right? I would bring those ideas to a writer who can fill that gap, who has the opposite strength that you have, and that way, those are the best writes, is when you have a writer who is great at one thing and a writer who's great at another thing, and you fill the holes that each of you have, and those are the best kind of co-writes that you can have. So to answer your question, I don't think that really disqualifies people from being considered a songwriter.
That's great.
But yeah, I was just going to quickly break down kind of what you can register, what you can't, because I think that's super important in the publishing sense. So if you write your own lyrics, write your own melody, you can register that, right? Just like any other song. And there's really no hurdles. The only thing that would be AI generated would be the demo in that case, in most scenarios. So obviously you cannot register the Suno demo as your own master. But if you do record live vocals over a track, then you do own the master to the live vocal. So that is one thing that you can register in that sense. And that's with USCO, the Copyright Office, with ASCAP, BMI, or whatever PRO you use, the MLC, Sound Exchange, all of that. You can register the composition, but you can't register the Suno version of the song unless you have a live. Whatever part of that is human created, you do have the ability to register those. And then in the other scenarios, let's say with the lyrics, if you have human written lyrics but AI generated melodies, in that case, you can still register the lyrics as your own composition, but when you do register those to your PROs, you can only register the lyric part of that composition. So that basically means that whatever melody that Suno or whatever software you use came up with is essentially treated as public domain. So someone else can go hear that and completely reuse it, and you don't really have any sort of ownership of that melody. So that's where things do get a little tricky. And obviously, if there is a human created version of that song that's all, there's players on it and live singers, you can still register that song to like Sound Exchange and make money off of it, right? But you still don't own the melody, so you don't have any sort of legal ownership of that melody. And so therefore, if someone else goes and uses that same melody with different lyrics, you don't really have any ability to sue. And vice versa, if you write the melody but you don't write the lyrics, you can still own the melody and you can register those, but you cannot register the lyrics that is AI generated. So you only own the copyright partially to that song. And then really the last scenario would be 100% AI generated. You don't own any of that. So if it is 100% AI generated song, you cannot register that. You cannot copyright that. The only thing that you can do is potentially, and this is very difficult to do, but potentially you can, it's almost like an arrangement. You can try to file for like an arrangement type copyright, but usually those cases are very difficult because there's no human aspect to that. So very simplified version of how to register your songs, that would be all you need to know. So if you're only using Suno to demo your songs that you fully wrote, and you have nothing to worry about, just don't register your Suno demos as masters. And in any other scenario, just be completely upfront with which parts of your songs are AI generated.
That's really, really great. I know there's going to be a lot of discussion around this. I feel like we could almost do webinars on each of our areas and be like here for full hours. But there's just so much really, really cool information and cool stuff that I'm not even familiar with, like on the publishing side. So thank you for sharing that. Very, very cool. All right, let's keep it moving. We can do one more part and then we will open it up. So hold your questions, please. Take note of them or write them down so you remember and come back to it. All right, so let's talk about same question from a sync licensing perspective. I will say out of all these three areas, and I led this in the beginning, sync is the most restrictive and the hardest to monetize. As I led off in the beginning, sync is the most risk averse. I really like the spirit of what, like, Akira said. You can tell that they are publishers. Their main goal is like, we're trying to find the talent. We're trying to find the writers. We don't care what you've used if we can't use it. Like the goal is, are you talented? Are you a talented writer? Are you a talented melody person? Like, I appreciate that about the publishing side. The sync side, their perspective is, we don't want to get sued. Like, that's really, the driver. And anything that makes them think like, I might get sued over this, it's better to just avoid it. It's part of the reason why sync licensing has always been very gate-kept. It's like we work with our friends, we work with people that we know, because if we work with people that we know, there's less chance that we're going to get sued. That's really like a lot of the basis for the entire sync licensing industry. And so if you are doing something now that you are getting traction online or you're getting people following you, then there are people who are going to try to figure out, like, how can we make this work? But as of right now, the whole sync space kind of has an anti-AI perspective. So for the most part, most music supervisors, most sync agents, if your production is or your vocals are AI generated, they're going to pass on it. They won't sign the song, and it'll be very hard to get a direct deal. I mean, you can get sync licensing deals directly with, like, say there's a film producer who hears your song on TikTok and is like, oh, I want that in my film. And then that person might reach out to you directly, and then there's room there to potentially do a one-off deal. But when you're going through the sync infrastructure, which normally is, very rarely does a musician connect directly to the film producer or TV producer. Usually they're working through an intermediary. That's a music library or a sync agent. Those people are not going to sign songs that have AI in them. Now, if you work around it and try, and just like what Akira said, if you try to not disclose it, eventually that will be found out, and this industry is super, super, super small. So all it takes is one person to say that you're not someone to work with, and then nobody will want to work with you. The word really does spread really, really fast, because you think about music supervisors, there's probably like 50 out there that are like, really big and really doing things. Like in sync agents, there's sync agencies, there's less than 100. So it's a very, very small industry, and everybody knows everyone. It's at least within the continental U.S. So does that mean that you can't do it? No, it means that there's a couple of workarounds that I think potentially work. One, if you take if you create a song and you consider Suno as your workspace for creativity, you're creating, using it to kind of create demos and flesh out your ideas. Even if you're getting traction, and you go in the next step and doing what Onyx says, and you're putting it out on TikTok, you're making content around it, and people are engaging with it, and you're getting streams from that. To be able to monetize that really requires making another version, what I would call like a syncable version, where this is the music that Suno created, for the song that I wrote. Now I'm going to find, a human producer, or if I have Suno vocals, I'm going to find a human vocalist, and try to create a alternate version of this song that I can say this is 100% human created, human production, human vocal. It was mixed and mastered, and that potentially can be synced. I'm afraid to get into the legal side because I'm not a lawyer, and even the lawyers don't fully know at this point in time because everything is still so early and new. But someone could still question, well, if you wrote the song but Suno created the production and then you went and you recreated that production, is it really your production? Because there are sync people who are so risk averse. There are some who still won't even touch it, but you open yourself up more to being able to pitch it by making a human version. So, two ways to do this. If you know for a fact that you've done something and you're like, this could be on TV or this is ad friendly, maybe you're talking to someone like me who's had ears on it, or you're in one of my listening sessions, and I say, yo, that's a great song, that would work great on an ad, then it will probably behoove you to figure out how to make a human version. Maybe then you look for collaborators and you say, hey, I've got this song, numerous people with credentials have said that this could work for ads, but it can't work with the Suno version. Would you be interested in remaking it? We split the proceeds 50-50, which is typically how things work kind of in the sync space. We're very much about like even splits. And so that person can remake it. They're going to remake things. It's going to sound different, and that people don't usually produce things like exactly how your demo is, especially once you get a vocalist on it. A vocalist is going to bring them to that song. And so you've got to be open to the fact that once you put a human vocal on it, they're going to do something different. I will tell you, as somebody who has made Suno demos and then used that to bring human vocalists in, so I did a project for a TV show 3 months ago where they needed, I needed to make like 20 songs in a couple of weeks. And so I brought together like 5 producers. I had them send me tracks. I wrote the songs to all 5 tracks. And normally, instead of like just bringing in the writers, the singers, I went and demoed all those songs with Suno first. So I did they were all songs for females. So I did my, demo of that. I uploaded my demo to Suno, had Suno kick out the demos, and then I sent those to 5 different singers and said, hey, cut these songs for me so that we can pitch this to this song. The issue is those Suno demos sometimes are hell of intimidating because Suno is making Beyonce level vocals every single time, which means it's crazy, crazy, crazy runs. It's 10 stacks of background vocals on every song, especially in the R&B, because if you tell it wants R&B, it thinks Beyonce every single time. And so when you send that demo to your average singer, they could be a kick-ass singer, but you send them this demo with these crazy, ridiculous runs, they're like, yo, is this seriously what you want me to do? And singers, and it doesn't matter whether they're like, even like, when you're pitching songs to, and probably Akira has a perspective on this, but you're pitching songs to top level artists, you don't want to make that demo sound crazy, crazy intimidating. You want it to be something in their wheelhouse that they can do. And so if you are, just an aside, if you are doing demos in Suno, you want to try to figure out how to make those demos as simple as possible, especially if you want somebody else to do. Maybe even if you have the folk produced, maybe make a cover that's just an acoustic folk cover, where it's just no harmonies, no background, it's just a simple top line, and then send that to the singer and say, hey, can you do this for me? And then you put that in the big production. But you got to figure out ways to make that simple. So all that to say, if you remake the song and you do a version for sync, you potentially could pitch that. But I'm putting the potential on there because sync is really about relationships, and it's really about talking to the people that you're pitching to, and you've got to know what they are comfortable with. And so you've kind of got to disclose what you're doing in your process. And some people are going to be with it, some people are not. You just kind of have to know that going in. Like I said, out of all these three things, it's the most restrictive, but there is a path forward. Especially, like I said, if you do have some traction online, there's a path. You just have to kind of take it person by person. But if you're not, if there's no traction, you're not doing releases, and you're like sync focused only, then I would use Suno just as a place to workshop your ideas, and then move immediately to real people, and look that as the next level of flushing that ideas before pitching anything. All right, where are we time wise? All right, it's one. Like I said, we're not rushing off, so we've got a good amount of time. Let's shift and open this up to questions. You've heard all three perspectives from the distribution branding, from the publishing, from the sync side. Early on, Easy Fix had his hand up, and then Rachel had a question after that. So I will go to those two in those orders, and then everyone else after that. If you got a question, just use the Zoom feature to raise your hand. If it's in the chat, I'll try to go through the chat as well. Easy Fix.
How you doing? I appreciate you guys for letting me in. Yeah, appreciate you for letting me in. I guess my question was more towards the production on Suno, and how you would be able to, network that to somebody as a writer, or a song composer, whatever Suno classifying us as. But like, I'm a person that has about 50 songs. I actually have 2 EPs out through Apple Music and Discord, so it's YouTube. It's fluctuating in the market. But my question was like, what would be the best direction, I guess, when it came to branding myself through, or finding a way to brand myself through as like a songwriter, like what I'm doing,
All right, 1 second. I'm trying to remove my pen so I can see the whole screen. There we go. All right, repeat the last part of your question, Easy, just to make sure I heard that right.
I think I'm pretty much just saying, like, my question in the beginning was like, how would I be able to like network, or find a way to network with somebody that would, be interested in like listening to what I've produced, and finding a market for it, or finding a value for it as like a songwriter or a ghostwriter, so.
Songwriter or ghostwriter, and finding collaborators to collab with, and then finding other people who might purchase it from the monetization side.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Yeah, for sure.
Onyx, thoughts?
Yes, that's a great question. So let's take AI out of it and just get in the songwriter space. So as a songwriter, you do want to be able to just do your general basic networking. Of course, you can do your content and say, oh, these are my lyrics. You can make it interesting, engaging. If that's not your style, that's okay as well. Although you do want to kind of break out into different things, try things, because, what you're not doing may work. Again, like I said earlier, whatever you're not doing, you can try it. Right. You want to get into maybe songwriting camp opportunities. Those are available more. They used to be like really hush hush. You never knew it was happening. Nobody could. You had to be in the club. But now, and you still have to be kind of. But look into some songwriting camp opportunities. One of the things I used to do back in the day is Google alerts. You remember that? Those Google alerts you set up, songwriting camps. And every time a songwriting camp came up, whether it was about what happened, when that just happened, when that was coming up, I would get an email about it. So I even did that. That was like my old school trick. Now you can use hashtags, you can use TikTok. There's artists literally advertising, I need a writer, I need this. They love social media. They go there first before they go to their teams, which is crazy. It drives the labels crazy. But they need fresh content. Everyone always looking for the next best thing. So just with this situation, you want to remove AI completely, and then network and connect that way also. music conferences, panels, where Akira and Eric was just at, going in those spaces, taking the time to invest on the business side of it because you're treating it like a business. The way that you're going to win on the monetization, and like Akira was saying, songwriters really don't get paid as much as they should. They're still fighting for those rights. It's always a battle. It's going to just be here for a while. So it's whatever. But getting in that space, general networking, being at these music conferences and spaces and different, depending on the genre you're at, Google music conferences, panels, do your research on it. Go back to your social media, look up what it was last year, who was there, who was in the room. Sean Garrett is everywhere. And if you're familiar with him, he's written for Beyonce, multiple artists, I believe. I don't want to go down his whole list right now because I don't have it in front of me, but, he's everywhere. You can catch him in different spaces. I'm not saying to approach him out in certain spaces, but some people, when they go to these conferences, they're expecting you to approach them. They know that you're going to have, just like now, you have questions. We're here for that. So you want to catch people in those spaces where they're comfortable and they're ready to speak with you. They're giving you those gems. But you just need to immerse yourself in that space and in those opportunities. So if that's, again, traveling or utilizing social media hashtags, Google Alerts, going to TikTok, it's not as hard as it sounds. It's just more so getting in there and then making sure that this is kind of where that branding piece comes in, separating yourself. If everybody in here is a writer, what are the different things that I can do? If everybody's going to Sean Garrett, who is that person over there? They might be somebody that I don't know there, but they may have wrote for the Beatles or whatever, you don't know. So you want to kind of go, make sure you're approaching everybody, make sure you keep it, respectful, limited, 2 to 3 questions, and then follow up. Thank you so much for your opportunity to speak with you. That's it. You don't go right in, can I come to your next session? Can I be in the studio? You build a rapport with people and network with them. Learn a little bit about them as well. Do your research on people. Eric just had a birthday. Happy belated birthday to Eric. Happy belated birthday to Akira. You do your little research, so that gives you like points up when you go to these spaces and network. You're like, oh my God. When I met, quick story, and I'll stop talking. When I met Eric Benet back in 2013, it was Super Bowl weekend. I was there interviewing. I also have a music and media company. So I was like, yeah, I'm here interviewing on behalf of, blah, 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 my company. And I'm like, oh, your wife, just congratulations on the new baby. He's like, how'd you know? Oh my God. So that created a rapport right there. Even though I already had the interview, it set me apart from everybody else that was in there doing their backstage interviewing or whatever they were doing. And I had my way in there, you know what I mean? So again, just take AI out of it and go back to the basics with the songwriting, because where you're going to win is ownership. They're still trying to figure out all of this stuff with, like Akira was saying, the ownership piece. That's where you're going to win when it comes to Suno, AI, any of that stuff. Keep that in mind. They're still trying to figure out how to get the splits and percents off of AI stuff, and they're going to figure it out just like they did when we went from just quickly to streaming. Now everything's streaming. They're going to figure it out, and it's going to be here. So you just want to get on the cusp of that, but take AI out and focus on the basics.
Just to add to that real quick, as a publisher, you don't sit around the office and expect great songwriters to come through the door. You got to be proactive and go out looking for them. So as a songwriter, if you're looking for collaborators, artists, whatever, you got to be out. You got to be out at rounds. You got to be out at shows, and don't approach it like you're trying to get something out of somebody. The co-writing with someone is a very kind of intimate thing, and you kind of become friends over time through that experience. So I would just approach them as any other person, try to get to know them, and if you click with somebody, naturally you're probably going to end up writing with them. So just be proactive, be out there. There's so many talented people out there that nobody knows about, and you could be the first one to find them, but you just got to be there. You got to be there to win, and to find it.
There's a number of questions. I want to add one thing, and then we're going to go see if Rachel, and I see 4 hands up, so we're going to get to everybody. Let me just first say, from what I'm hearing in this conversation, I'm seeing like this kind of 2 types of people in this AI creation space. You have some kind of like Martin shared earlier, where I think there are people who either have deep music industry experience, but have also seen the side of the industry that's very gate kept or difficult to crack. As somebody who spent 10 years trying to figure out Atlanta, like I really relate to that, experience. And then you get to Suno and you're like, oh, okay, I know exactly what to do. I know how exactly to take this, accelerate it, and apply it to that world and rules. Like that's one set of people, and then the other are people who may not have even considered the music industry up until this point. Maybe you were writing poetry. Music was not. Suno has enabled you to enter into a new aspect of creativity that maybe heretofore you have not fully embraced. And so, for the people on that side, your question is, for you is, do you keep this as just a creative hobby or expression, or do you look for something deeper with it, in as much as the industry will allow you to? And for that requires kind of almost like jumping deep into going down the rabbit hole of this whole music industry. You may have not spent your life studying and figuring this out. A lot of what we're talking about, the industry is a very collaborative space. It's different people with different skills coming together and making something totally different. All that might be very new to you. So for now, if that feels overwhelming, it's just kind of like, let yourself kind of take in, open your mind to these, newer concepts, and figuring out things with copyright, and figuring out things, there's so much that has been written about the music industry that you can explore and find it out. There's more books than you will ever be able to go through. There's more YouTube videos than you'll ever be able to consume. And so if you're in that space, I do encourage you to just don't let it overwhelm you, but take your time to just kind of explore how the industry works, because you're trying to find the intersection between what you've now discovered and an industry that has a way about doing things, and to figure out where that overlap is. Rachel, did we already address your question? Did you have a question? I want to make sure.
I actually just wanted to say something in regard to branding.
Okay, cool.
I don't just songwrite. I see these, like I had said to you in the last time I had seen you, that I write from seeing stories in my head. So I've already got that visual going in my head, and I'm a very emotional writer. So I take what I'm seeing in my head and I write it down. I turn it into a song, and I go at it with directing Suno on. No, I want it to be this way. I need this beat, and it needs to sound, and it's a lot of my stuff is a mix of stuff, and that's just how I hear it in my head. That's what it needs to sound like. And so after it's turned into a song, because those visuals were there, I then put together a music video and put it on YouTube. I even went as far as to create an end times movie with a whole bunch of different songs. Like there was literally 14 different songs from what would happen right before the rapture all the way up until, and then I did a love story one from that childhood friend that turned to a teenage first kiss, and then moving away and the longing that goes after. Like that's my brand. That's what I'm doing. I'm that emotional storyteller, and everything I've made shows that.
That's awesome. That's awesome, especially that you add. I do think that is a great part of creativity, and a great part of what AI is enabling now is, the people who have the vision. It allows you to find outlets, whether that is music to video, and there's other forms. It could be music to live stage musical. It could be, it's just giving us giving us training wheels on how do I take a thought in my head and then follow it all the way to whatever the completion is. So that's really, really cool. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
All right, let's go through Keisha. I hope I pronounced your name right. You got a question?
Yes, thank you. I actually had a few questions. I'm going to try to keep it brief and make it less specific and more general. So for me, I was wondering, number one, is it when we talk about the melody aspect, right? So I'm a writer at heart. I've always been a writer, and it's turned into things like public speaking, motivational speaking, those sorts of things, right? And so I have this huge library of things, but in the spirit of generalization, and when we're talking about melody, like when I write poetry, or then it becomes music, and I do the entitled title, verses, hooks, bridge, etc., compilation. In my mind, of course, I'm hearing based on this story that I'm telling what I would want it to sound like. And so I've seen people that just go into software like AI, Suno type situation, and they just put the words in and let it create its own interpretation of what it's going to sound like. Is there a difference in ownership if you are saying from the beginning, like, hey, I want the BPM to be here between 50 and 70 or 50 and 80 because I want it to be a slower thing, or I want it to be more at 140 because the pace is going to be, the cadence is going to be faster with a rap tone. And you're saying, this needs to be progressive from, confusion into awareness into etc. So if you're prompting in that way where you're building literally what you hear in your head onto this tool, what does that look like as far as ownership is my first part.
Yeah, I mean, the ownership aspect, I mean, is still, you only own the human created aspect of that. So it doesn't really matter how specific you are in prompting Suno. The only part of that you can own is the part that you actually wrote yourself. And I mean, that's what we're doing with our demos as well, as we're hearing these work tapes and we're hearing it for a certain artist. We hear something that's a country song.
Mm-hmm.
That could be really cool for a pop artist. We're prompting Suno specifically to create a demo that sounds.
Yeah, because that's what I was thinking.
Like,
it's like you guys used Beyonce earlier, and it's like if you hear that and you want it to sound that way, you're going to prompt that way, but it's still going to pull from only what it has to pull from with that reference, right?
Right, exactly. And in terms of ownership, you only own the parts of it that you've created yourself.
Perfect. So the next part of that, because
hold on.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Eric.
Just to add to that, also for the room, because if you think about the song with all those things that you have, and this is not necessarily logical, but it's based just on law, which is copyright, and the copyright was established many years ago, and so the only part that can be assigned ownership is the actual composition, which is the chords and the melody of the song, and then the actual recording itself, which is whether you've burned it onto a vinyl or made the digital recording. So all the other things that are decisions that go into that. What's the speed? What's the BPM? What style are we doing? Is this going to be disco? Is it going to be funk? Is it going to be gypsy, polka, or what have you? Those all fall down to production, which is why songwriters hire producers. Producers make those decisions. So what you're prompting is you're prompting production decisions. So you are producing the song through Suno, but your production doesn't give you ownership. It makes you the producer, and people might hire you, say, oh, you know how to produce a song, but just from the copyright, the only thing you can claim ownership of is either the melody and composition that you created or the master recording that you financed.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So then there's two other aspects of that same thing, right? So I'm always super intentional because I'm extremely layered and forward thinking. So from the very beginning, before I even knew there was all this controversy, I only started doing this because of a surgery that I had. And anyway, but thinking forward, I was like, okay, let me be real distinct in the record keeping process of this. So I have my original works, right? And then I have the development of the song structure. And then, if you hum a melody and you upload that into Suno, and it takes what you've hummed into the system, and then it develops like additional components, does that make a difference?
You own the melody, the portion of the melody that you created, you own. Whatever else that AI generates from that melody, you can't claim any ownership.
And how does that differentiate, like in ASCAP or BMI? Like, how do you differentiate that when registering?
So that would be like a partial composition. So and this is where you have to be very, very
Mm-hmm.
upfront about what you've done, but also you have to keep a very good record of, which
Mm-hmm.
parts of the song you created yourself so that you can prove that you did create part of that melody, So those are all things that you need to do. But yeah, in terms of ASCAP or BMI or whatever else you're, a member of, you can register parts of the song essentially that
So it's like,
created.
sorry, because I'm not meaning to cut you off.
It's okay.
I like when you're registering, so if you break it out that way, like the song, so it's like 50-50, right? 50-50 for the development and then 50-50 for the publishing, essentially. But they're both 100% of those components. So if you're doing the first, 50%, which is 100%, like what would that look like when you're registering? Like what aspects do you put in and then what do you leave on the table? Like, are you saying we put 75 in to protect ourselves? And I know you're not an attorney, but just from your perspective, right? Like, what is a healthy consideration to protect our intellectual property and to get that in place and upfront, but to leave room for the consideration of what may come?
So that's difficult because all of these organizations are still kind of developing their own guidelines, right? So in some cases, you might be able to get away right now with parts of the melody being AI generated, and they might still just give you ownership because they don't know yet, right? But
That's where I landed with it, yeah.
right. But generally, I mean, what you're protecting is what you've created.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't really protect whatever part of the song is AI generated. You don't really have any sort of claim to protect that if someone else were to reuse it.
So would you say that the more record keeping, the more track of your entire process, the individualization aspect, the ownership of it, is critical as we look at what is to come? And also the integrity and the intention, in my opinion, is a huge component in this. Because if you're keeping track, if you're doing your part, if your intent is not to take credit for something that's not yours, but you really can see the process of individual ownership and development, then I think, should something come to any sort of escalation, that probably would be a huge difference maker. Would you agree?
If you are using AI in any way that's past going to Chat GPT or something and asking for words that rhyme, if you're doing that, like what words rhyme, or hey, give me flower names, you're good. You could have just Googled that, right? So there's no issues with that. But if you are using AI to generate any part of your song, then record keeping becomes essential. Just in case someone does try to sue you for something, you have all the proof and evidence that you need to show that these are the parts of the song that you wrote and that you created and that you own. So record keeping is essential.
Very much.
Perfect. I'm almost done, guys. Sorry.
Well, Keisha,
yes, sir.
Keisha, let me go through the Bryce and Martin and Cole, and then come back for your.
Sure, perfect. I'll note where I. Okay.
Thank you. All right, Bryce.
Hello, how's everybody doing?
Good.
Okay, so I have like 3 questions, and I think the first question is geared more towards you, Onyx, but anybody feel free to jump in. My question is, how often should I release singles as a indie artist?
As much as you want to. There's no more. Okay. As much as you want to, and as much as your budget allows you to, as much as your bandwidth allows you to. Especially if what I do recommend before you do a release is teasing, what we call teasing. So putting your music out there a couple of weeks before, testing to see what works best. But you can work 3 and 4 at a time. Back in the day, it used to be a thing where, just this and that. There's no more rules anymore with that. So
that's what I thought. I've been hearing a lot on both ends. I've been hearing nobody's going to take you seriously if you're not putting out at least like a song a month. And then I've been hearing if you don't sit with a song and push that one good song that you really believe in for a year, if you don't do that, you're moving on too quickly and nobody is going to get a chance to really absorb your single. So I'm really torn, and I'm working on a project now where I'm like, I don't really know what the best move is at this point. I can put out a song every month. That's fine, but does that make sense? You know?
I wouldn't put out a song every month, but you can work singles and at the same time. And you do still work it through that full year, however long it takes to reach its maximum potential, because it's not about where the song premieres, it's about where it finishes. So
Yeah.
you can have a song come out now, and again, I'll take it back to Busted Challenge just for the sake of the conversation. We had to go back and deal with that song. We moved on. We were in the third, fourth single, and then it blew up, and we had to go back and care about it, and I'm glad we did. But so it doesn't. There's no rule of thumb to I gotta just do this one song and work this the full year. You work all of them. So whichever ones you're gonna release, whichever ones are getting the most engagement, that's fine. There's some times where we would release, and again, I'm speaking more so for myself, but I'm giving perspective on label things and different strategies just that I've seen in general in the industry. You can do a double release and do a 2 point. It just kind of depends on the end goal, but it's not as perfect that it has to be anymore. Just put the music out there, tease it, see what people like, see what gets the most engagement. Because essentially, if you are releasing a project, usually when you upload your project, they ask you which is going to be the focus track, which song is going to be the one that you want us to push, or which one would you push to Eric, or which one would you push to Akira if they were representing or working with you on a particular project. So that's kind of what you want to focus on. So you can have like your main, this is the one that, I'm working on and putting the investment in, but let the data do the conversation, speak to it, not whoever is giving you. You mean, great, take all the advice.
Sure.
My word is not even, the end all be all, but anything can happen and work for you. So just utilize all your platforms. That's the biggest thing. Utilize all your opportunities, get outside, perform, get the engagement, create the brand experience, create the branding, get the marketing, do all of those aspects, but you can work as many singles as you like and as your budget and time allows you to.
Okay.
I wouldn't do like 5 or 6, but maybe a good 3 or 4 just to get a handle since you are independent. I think 3 is a great number, and just see which one does the best before you lead with that one, and then the rest can follow.
I will say the Nashville kind of standard right now, if you're trying to build up a following, especially on Spotify, is 5 to 6 weeks, every 5 to 6 weeks. And that allows for the algorithms to pick it up. But also, once you do gain momentum, you have something else to feed that algorithm. So 5 to 6 weeks is usually what they recommend right now in Nashville.
Got it. Okay. So real quick, shameless plug before I go to my next question. I've been basically doing exactly what you're saying. I created like a YouTube show called Foreplay, and I take 4 unreleased songs, and I've just been going outside to random cities and asking people to listen to the songs and tell me which one they think should be the single, which one they like the best. So if you guys want to go to my website, I just put it in the link. You can listen to the 4 songs that I'm doing this season, because I'm going to do another season once this is over. And you can vote on the song that you like the best. So far, the feedback has been geared towards this one song, so that's going to be the single. But I'm still asking, people to stay engaged, so far, so forth. So whenever you guys want to check that out, by all means, guys, check it out and let me know. Okay, so my next question is geared to
Bryce, hold up. I'm going to do the same thing I did with Keisha. I'm going to put you at the back.
Okay, that's
make
fine.
sure I get to everybody. So let me go.
Yeah, no problem.
And then call, and then I'm going to come back for your last question.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah, and this is more of advice to the people that are users Suno. Oh, now the way I do mine, just so that you know, I go in Logic Pro. I do the music first, basic structure of the song, sing it, melody, hook, the whole 9, feed it into Suno. Suno has a thing where if you upload audio, you can make that Suno singer as close to your version as possible, which means now you own that melody that you sung in, you own that hook, you own that arrangement. I've been copywriting, publishing, the whole 9. And it's been going through. Nobody's challenged me. Mediabase challenged me a little something, but once I explained the process, it was all systems go, because that song was me. Suno wouldn't have had none of that unless I uploaded it. So please keep that in mind. Now, I love the person that said every 5 to 6 weeks, because I've been releasing songs every week since November. because they said once you're in that algorithm, keep it cranking, because and it's been working. Like you go for you see for yourself, misbehaving, it's working. So all I can say is, if you can afford it, like you said, Onyx, and I pay these people, they got the placement services. I'm on like 1,600 playlists, but different songs on different playlists. But I'm telling y'all, this shit works. That algorithm, once it gets a hold of you and says, yo, you're gonna like this. If you're the gospel, you're gonna like that. Do you? I can't tell you. I'm not a professional. This is their panel, but I'm just telling you what worked for me since November. 320,000 streams.
That's huge.
That ain't bad. And I think by August, it'll probably be 500,000. That's just the way I see it because of the way it's growing. Just me. Thank you, guys.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Oh, Onyx, you're muted. I know you were trying to talk. If you were trying to say something, Onyx, you were muted. Oh, no, okay.
I was just agreeing that was really great, and thank you for sharing. And we're all sharing experiences. And again, nobody is expert in this field because it's new. AI has been here actually, and Eric and I was talking about this for years. He didn't mention this, but we were following it along the way, like the past 3 years. So we were keeping up with it as it was, evolving into what it is now. Yeah. So, but just know, again, they're still trying to figure it out. And Akira keeps mentioning it, Eric. They don't even know what's going on. They're still trying to figure out because they want to make money off of it. So
that's the key. So you guys know Samori Coles? He's real big in AI, talks about Suno, gets on with Olivia, who's huge. I mean, she's doing millions of streams. And I'm listening to him because he's the one who said, yo, if you upload this in your melody and your thing and keep it as close to possible, you could copyright it, BMI it, MLC it. I was like, oh shit. That's all I needed to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Cole, let's see what's going on, Cole.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Appreciate all the info. Good to see you, Eric. Please tell me to just rewatch the video if this has been answered. I unexpectedly had to watch my 6-month-old and my 3-year-old, so I missed a few parts. But I was just curious, do you all see any reason as to why you would need to become efficient with AI right now for the future? Like, let's say right now you do everything yourself. You don't have a need for AI necessarily. But thinking of the future, what if there was a world where a company was like, we figured out the legalities and we need about 10 songs a day if we're going to work with you. So if you don't use Suno, if you're not efficient with Suno, then we don't want to work with you because you're just doing it all yourself. It's going to take too long. Or even if there was a different area where it was like a mixing engineer, where you're like, we don't need your mixes. They may be better than this AI's mixes, but your mix is going to take you a day or two, and Suno or AI mixer will get it to us in 30 seconds.
Oh, I want to definitely jump on this because I have so many thoughts. So I don't know, like you have no idea what's coming down the pike, but I think and just like what Onyx said, like we've been talking about AI for so long and just technology in general. Coming from a technology background, I just default to, I need to know what's coming. I need to be ready for what's coming. And I feel like, especially, it's already hard enough to make money in any creative field. I feel like you have to be ready to pivot at any time. And the only way to pivot is to stay in touch with what's happening. Because once it shifts, if you haven't kept up, it's like the people who are just now discovering TikTok are struggling to figure out this algorithm, but the people who were on there from way back when Gary Vee was like, y'all need to check out this TikTok, thing. When everybody was on Facebook, those are the people who are like, oh, I get why this meme is funny. I understand how humor works here. Making content is not as big a deal, and you can only do that when you are taking the time or putting reps in with whatever the new thing is, and you don't know what it's going to be, so it takes some time. So like, I'm not messing with Udio right now, but when I did, experiment with it when it came out, and now I'm kind of experimenting a lot with Suno. I'm always checking out. It's just like, if you're a master, like you do a lot of mastering, Cole, I know, and mixing, and so I'm going to pay attention to what. Now that I'm saying it, what's the mixing plugin? the mastering plugin. Sorry, Ozone. I'm going to pay attention to every version of Ozone, which pretty much is an AI tool, and I think that's where every DAW is going. Every DAW is going to be integrating more and more and more AI features into the DAW. So maybe we won't be producing in Suno or Suno Studio. We'll still be producing in Logic and Ableton, but yeah, maybe a year or two from now, you will be expected to mix a song, in a few hours because you got, Ozone and Lander and all these things, and you got the AI EQ, and so um, long answer short, short answer long, whatever it is. I think it it behooves us to pay attention, but the risk is that it doesn't go anywhere. The risk is that they never figure out the copyright issue. Like copyright is so screwed in this country. Like you don't like the lawyers haven't even started down this path, and who knows where this goes, So, but wherever it's going to go, the only way to be prepared to pivot is to at least stay on top of it. So, I will. As a creative, I do take my songs. I do kind of like Martin says. I'll take some of my songs. I'll upload them. Things that I fully produce. I produce every single way now. I start songs on Ableton Note because it's here, and I just want to, I want to get comfortable with like mobile production. I start songs on my iPad. I start songs here on the piano. I start songs on my Novation pad. I start songs every which way because I want all the workflows. I just want to I don't know what's going to be the one way, but I'm always looking at how to get faster, and I just want to know, everything.
Right. And also, if you become proficient at something, you can also figure out what it is you can bring to the table, right? Like everybody can make a Suno demo. That doesn't mean every Suno demo is good, right? Like I feel like I make better Suno demos than everybody because I have vision for these songs, and so it's important to figure out what it is you're good at and what gap you can fill, and so everybody can figure out how to use an AI mastering plugin, but can you bring your own flavor to it, And the other part is just the part of the music industry that you make the most money as an artist is, if you're an artist, is the live performance, right? Royalties, they don't pay you anything, right? They pay you pennies and all that other stuff. I mean, as a songwriter, it's difficult, but if you are an artist, I feel like you can find some peace knowing that people are always going to want live performances. People are always going to want to go to shows and really experience that music. So I don't think that's something AI can ever replace, so especially if you're an artist, become a great performer. If you're a great performer and you can captivate 10 people, 20 people, 30 people, hopefully one day you make it big and you can do that with 10,000 people, So I do think there is some peace in knowing that that part of music is probably not ever going to be replaced.
All right.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say that was a really good point because that's probably how people felt about samples as an issue as well. Like, oh, anyone can chop up a song. Can you make it sound good? Like, can you take that sample and turn it into something you wouldn't expect it to be? So that's a really good point.
Very, very cool. I agree. All right, so let's go back to Keisha, Bryce, and then Alexander, and we're probably going to have to stop at that point. Keisha.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for circling back. I appreciate the way you guys are facilitating this. It's extremely structured, and I value that, so thanks. So the next part would be does pulling it out of Suno and putting it in. So I typically pull whatever I land on in Suno into Moses, and I separate the stems. And from there, I put it into BandLab, and I do a lot of modifications there to get the exact sound that I'm looking for and the time that I'm trying to land on based on what my intent is. Does that change the aspect of ownership? And in correlation to that, the releasing of music, is that going to put limitations on sync and publishing aspects? So is intent more important of a question than anything? And the last part is when we consider the controversy that's going on right now, based on that 5 to 6 week advisement of release, one of the huge things I hear from quote unquote organic artists is the limitations of their contract with regards to release, and how they feel more of the intimidation or tension comes from the limitations within their ability to release and the oversaturation that they feel like is coming from AI artists. And should consideration be given to that?
Um, I'll circle back to the workflow one into ownership. I don't think it changes anything Akira said earlier about ownership. I think ownership still does come down to, did you make the melody? Did you write the composition? Everything else falls into production and arrangement. But I do think out of everything we've talked about today, I feel like um, uh, the brother was misbehaving. He might have jumped off because I don't see him now. But I feel like his workflow was the one that secures the most ownership. So being as much of the song as you can create on your own, even if it's you sitting at a piano. And if you don't play piano, maybe it's just being able to learn a couple of chords and being able to hum the melody. But as much as you can say, this is what I created. I got the voice memo of it. I've got the early session with just me and Apple Loops on a free version of GarageBand on my MacBook, but you can see that I created this song, and then everything else is you flushing out the thing that you created, not the reverse. The more that you can switch to that, then the more ownership options I think that you have.
Could you clarify the intent part of the question? I didn't quite catch that.
Yes. So if your goal is to, let's say, do sync work, right? If you release something, my understanding, because I was asked to be part of a sync library at one point, and I haven't picked a lane, guys. This is my thing.
It's
I have
okay.
not picked a lane because it's so early, and I know the way that I think, and I know my ability, and I don't want to limit myself by choosing A and shooting myself in the foot, right? So my understanding, and I could be wrong, please correct me, but when sync picks something up, they have to release it first, and then you can do a remix or a cover of it, but you can't necessarily have something out and then they're going to pick it up and use it. Like, the idea, from my understanding, is that they want to do the first part.
That's not always the case. If you were dealing with sync is very broad in itself, and there's a lot of different lanes even within sync. So if you were talking to a music libraries often retain full exclusive ownership of the songs that they sign, and they only
So that would be why then.
things that are unreleased. But sync agents sign and release songs all the time, and music supervisors license songs that are signed all the time. So independent art, in fact, there are a lot of music supervisors and sync agents that prefer artists that are out building their brand, doing releases, getting traction. So that's just one not small, but that's just one specific avenue of sync, that there are certain companies that don't want release songs.
That makes sense. Perfect. I didn't know the differentiation. And then, Akira, what about the publishing part of it?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, if you want to be a sync writer, that doesn't mean you can't get a publishing deal, right? Like, publishing companies sign sync writers and producers all the time. So you don't have to pick a lane in that sense. And if you are great at sync and you're getting, a bunch of
I'm
plays.
not. I suck at being commercial. Sorry.
Well, either way, I mean, releasing your own music is never a bad thing. Like,
But
it's
can
really
you publish? Can you pick up the song that's already been released and use that for
yeah.
somebody else?
Well, yeah. So we don't necessarily always pick up the masters, but usually in a songwriting, like a contract, in a deal, there's this thing called Schedule A, and those are all the works that you have previously written. So let's say you're a writer at Sony and you get out of your deal after 4 years. The songs that you've written post your contract, after you get out of your contract, that you own, right? And usually the publishing company will want at least a portion of that. So they may say, okay, you have 30 songs you've written after your contract. We want these 10 songs to be included when we sign you. So if you've released them, that's not an issue at all, because, I mean, and you have to be realistic too. If you're an artist and you're getting 1,000 streams on your song, it's really not going to be an issue when we pitch that to a bigger artist, because they're probably never going to find your version of it. And even if they do, it's not going to compete with them releasing it, right? So you just have to be realistic with where you are. And if you're getting 50,000, 100,000 streams on your songs, then keep doing it. You don't have to pitch it to another artist, you know? So there's really, in terms of publishing, there's really nothing that can stop us from being interested if you're a great writer.
Perfect. And
Unless
is
you're a
there,
bad person. Don't be a bad person.
I tell people all the time, clean hands and a pure heart is the key to just about everything. It really just is, in my opinion, of course. And the last thing is I was wondering, because a lot of us are more, we have our individual questions, right? So I wasn't sure what you guys, your posture was, because you guys have been phenomenal in everything you've done. Thank you for facilitating this. Thank you for what you do and giving this to us. Yeah, everybody's clapping. Yeah, for sure. This is phenomenal. But I wasn't sure, just to ask, right? Is there any availability offline to continue conversations without being flooded? Like, what would that look like? Is there consultation fees? Yeah.
Thank you for that, Keisha. I will talk a little about that at the end. We don't have anything right now. Like, I know a lot of times you go to free webinars and they're like, hey, here's our course or here's this. We really did this just to see kind of what the temperature of the room is, what people's questions are, what people are looking for, and how we can help, and also to kind of counter what the negative vibe that we've seen online speaking to the AI community. So we want to just more give you some validation as creators, and let you know that there are paths to monetization. So we ourselves will be talking before we leave. We'll give our contact or best way to kind of engage with us. And then we do have everyone's emails. I'll be sending out the replay, and then letting you, if we do decide to do, whether it's a community or just come back with some more webinars to share information, we'll be communicating via email, like the best way that we'll be doing that. But you'll definitely have our contact when we leave here. Let me circle back to Bryce and then Alexander.
Okay, so my question is, outside of taking the songs that I'm writing and performing them and engaging with fans and things of that nature on social media and in person, outside of that, how do I get my songs placed on other artists? Do I need to do I need to get signed to a publishing company? Do I need to link up with A&R at the events that you mentioned earlier, like the different conferences and things like that? What other suggestions would you guys have for me? Because that is the other half of my goal, to have my songs placed on other artists. But I'm not signed to a publishing company, so I don't know how to go about that.
Well, we're all trying to figure that out right now here in Nashville, because fortunately, it's not like it used to be where we can just walk into a label and say, hey, who's looking? Here's some songs. Major labels especially want ownership of everything. So they usually, if you look, most 9 out of 10 songs on a record is written by writers that they signed. So it is a challenge. It is a challenge. And I will say that's probably the toughest thing to do as a songwriter right now, is get cuts. So I would say the best thing you can do is find artists, and you're probably not going to start with, Justin Bieber, but go find an artist that you think is cool, that you can write for. And if you build that relationship, start writing with them, you're going to get cuts that way. Like, all the cuts that I'm getting are through just friends who are artists, and I like what they do, and so I write with them, and they like what I write, and they're like, I'm gonna record this, and so a couple weeks ago, I wrote a song with my buddy, and he loved it so much he recorded it 3 days later and is releasing it. So I would say, if you want to get cuts as a songwriter, you need to network, find artists that you work well with. And through that, you're going to start getting cuts. And next thing you know, if you have 30 or 40, now you have something to show to publishers, So I would start there.
Okay, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm really glad you asked that question, Bryce. And I think when you look at what you're doing in Suno, not just as a final product, but as a reel and as a demo of your capabilities. And again, you have to disclose what capabilities is representing. Is it your melodies? Is it your lyrics? What have you? But I find that in the music industry, it's not AI side, even main producers and songwriters, most people seriously underutilize the power of DMing to find people to collaborate and work with. Like that is the number. Like if you have a reel that demonstrates what you've done, if you have a piece of content that's going viral because of a song that you made, and viral could be, it doesn't have to be viral, it could be 1,000 people like this song that I made. There's nothing stopping you from looking at other human artists that are in the same genre and saying, hey, I wrote this song, people seem to like it, can I write you a song? Like, and if 20 of those artists are like, I don't deal with AI and I don't ever want to talk to you again, 21, 22, or 23 might be like, that is awesome. What do you got? Like,
Yeah.
everybody in the creative community, I'm going to go on a whole nother rant, but everybody in the creative community could benefit from learning to be a little bit more of a salesperson and being able to pitch themselves, not just to the money people above, but to your peers left and right who need help and assistance. And that person may not have money, but that person might have 30,000 followers or might have 100,000 streams a month on Spotify, and you could get your own placement without any publishing company just by DMing 5 artists every single day. It may take you a year, but getting, that could be where your million streams comes from.
Yeah. Okay, that's great advice.
And you can also, this is the last piece, Bryce, while you're releasing your music. So make sure you're still releasing your music, getting your engagement going. And as your music is doing well, you'll find that other people will want to collaborate with you also. It really just is a thing of being consistent, putting it out there, working it, and then the networking piece, all of the aspects, outside, online, all of the above.
Okay. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate your time.
You're very, very welcome. All right, we're going on almost 2 hours, so this is going to be the last question. Alexander. Uh-oh, Alexander, you there? You got to unmute if you are. Or maybe not. Maybe Alexander stepped away. All right. Well, just in case, let's do the wrap up. Akira, Onyx, any last words, and also like contact or how people can stay in touch with you?
Yeah,
Akira,
I'm pretty open to just conversations if I can help with anything. I mean, we're all in this because we just love music, So if you got some cool songs you want to share, or you just want to talk about it, or see what you can work on, I mean, I'm always happy to do that. Obviously we're all very busy, but we'll try to make a time. So
is there do you want to leave any particular contact or
yeah, my email is super easy. It's just Akira, my first name, and then at Hori, HORI global.com.
Awesome. And Onyx?
Yes, just thank you guys for your time as well, and for your questions. Just remember, there's no wrong or right way into the industry, and just even with your intent, keep in mind the laws and rules and different things as they're trying to figure them out. Stay ahead of the curve like you do everything else. And I'm on Instagram, but I don't like it. But I'm on there because I have to be. I'm a TikTok. Even though I don't have content on TikTok, so it's funny, but you can find me on TikTok and Instagram, Onyx254, and then my Gmail is flooded, so that's not the best space because I might not see it. So DM, she'll know I read it and I can get back to it. Is the best way to reach out.
Awesome. And I put mine in there, so best for me is DMing me on Instagram at Eric Makes Music, or TikTok, which is Eric Makes Music 3. Usually, mostly everywhere is Eric Makes Music. The email is Eric at Control Camp. I'll put that there. I have a couple different ones, but that's probably the best one. So I try to check all of them. Sometimes I'm slow, but I do try to check all my responses and try to get back. Anyway, this has been really, really cool. Again, I will be sending out a poll just for everyone to see how webinar was, and also when I send out the poll, talk to me about how we best can support you. There's a lot of people pushing communities, books. I don't want to just push something, but I do want to do something that helps. And so if it is pulling a community together, we can do that. If it is doing regular webinars or bringing people together in space, we can do that. So when I send you the poll, talk back about what you think you need to help you make money in this space. And if we can, we're all working professionals, but if we can figure out something that, matches our time and allows us to contribute, we'll put something together.
And I add just one thing: when you do send me something, if you want me to listen to songs, please don't send me 30 songs. I'm not going to listen to that. I'm probably going to just close the folder before I listen to one. So just send me 1 to 2 songs that you love. And if you don't hear back the first time, it's probably because I either liked it, didn't like it, or whatever. You'll hear back if we absolutely love it and there's something we can do to help, but that doesn't mean just stop. You can feel free to send stuff whenever, but just not every day and not 30 songs, please, because we can't do that.
I second Akira on that as well, because we're not going to A&R the project, because that's pretty much what that is at that point. You're getting us to pick everything and break it down. That's a different fee. That's different. But do we have a couple seconds? Yes, we do. It takes me 15 seconds to know if I like something, and I already know if I'm going to keep moving forward. And that's just the honesty of it. 30 seconds max. So send it. I'm happy to give her 2 cents. But again, it could go viral overnight. It's not up to me. But we do appreciate you guys. And yeah, I just had to come in with the cure on that because that's a real thing. So, but thank you.
Y'all have been great. Y'all asked some awesome questions, and I'm glad this is helpful. I'm really looking forward to hearing your feedback when I send out the poll. Akira, Onyx, this has been awesome. Thanks for taking so much time out of your day. I know you're both working, and so thanks for jumping.
Thank you.
Really cool.
Thank you guys so much.
All right, we'll be talking to y'all soon. Y'all enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.